welcome to another episode of Diary of a Wannabe Comedian with me, Belle, a wannabe comedian. So I went to some comedy on Thursday. I think that's where I left you. I'd known by this point that I was going to see Ed Gamble, that he was in the lineup. I hadn't appreciated there were three other comedians. Yeah, three other comedians as well. And Chloe Petts was the MC. And she was terrible. I've seen her before. I've seen her do her stand-up at, what was that, the other Belle, and I also saw her on Have I Got News For You, and she was very good, but she was dire as an MC. She was really not good at all. She just spent a lot of her time being, well, she wasn't that nice to most of the audience, but she was particularly nasty to me, so I'm going to be a little hacked off with her. I mean, it was really not nice. It was very unpleasant, she said to me. She talked to a load of people and they were all in finance and they were solicitors and blah, blah, blah. And then she came to me and she said, "You look terrified." And I hate that. They always say that. And it's like, I'm not terrified. I'm just trying to not be selected because I don't want to not play the game because I know how hard the game is when you're the MC. But she picked on me and I said, no, not at all. I just feel that I might be just as uninteresting as everyone else because that's more or less what she'd said. And she didn't sort of take the bait then. She could have said anything like, "Oh, I'll be the judge of that," whatever. Anyway, she asked me what I did. And obviously that's kind of boring as well. It's legal. I'm not a solicitor, just so we know. Because there's that MP, isn't there, who's said he was a solicitor and he's not. I've never said I'm a solicitor, but I do legal things with contracts, So I was kind of explaining that, and it didn't really go anywhere. She couldn't do anything, she had no material for lawyers, if you like. And then she just said in a really spiteful way something about, "Yeah, you really are boring." And it was just so horrible the way she said it. I just thought, charming. So that was that. She's made my shit list, as I say. But in terms of the comedians, we had Rhys James, who was stand-in for someone else because someone else couldn't make it. We had Nabil, how do you say his name? Abdul Rashid. Yeah, Nabil Abdul Rashid. A lady called Sharon, and I didn't get her surname because I think she's fairly new on the scene. And then, of course, Ed Gamble to finish at the rear, as they say. And the only one who was a good comedian, in my opinion, I mean, they were all good. There was little titters, throughout. So don't get me wrong. They were all incredibly safe. I think I played a clip, didn't I, last Thursday from Graham Linehan where he talked about the real mastery is playing around the edges and then drawing people in and then make them breathe a sigh of relief because they realise you're not a psychopath. Well, none of them really did any of that. The closest one to it, and by far the best comedian, was Nabil. So he played with his own background and the way he can come across quite fierce and how that interacts with little old white ladies. And it was very, very funny indeed, because he was kind of self-deprecating. The other two, Rhys and Ed Gamble, completely safe. I mean, Ed Gamble did a whole set about the neighbourhood WhatsApp group, and then he talked about breakfast in hotels. I mean, it was amusing, but really, come on, that level, I just expected more. That's the kind of thing I could do. I don't, because obviously I'm not doing anything till May. Although that said, somebody approached me about doing a gig in June. So I've got to get my act together because it's quite a big gig. So I was quite excited about that. So it means I'm definitely going back to comedy now anyway. So where was I? Yeah. So that means, Rhys, very funny. Ed, very funny, but safe. Very, very safe. Pedestrian, I think the word would be. Sharon, on the other hand, was just abusive and just really offensive to white women. She played a lot around her cultural heritage and being a young black woman, and that just really manifested itself in just being generally rude to white women. And I was sat, with a group of people, not that I was with them, but we talked at half time and just said how we talked in the interval and just said how actually it was quite offensive, really. And you can't, you struggle, you laugh to be polite, but no. I mean, I thought she's really young, that's what it is. But actually, she's 27. So, I mean, she's really 30. It's not that young. You don't have to stand on stage and be rude to your audience. But hey, she went for it. That was her choice. And I feel she paid a little bit for it because I think the audience, we're talking Sloane Square here. with Cadogan Hall, that was 50% of her audience that she just alienated in one breath. But hey, she went for it. She was brave, and I support her to do that. But I think go play around different edges, not the easy stuff like that. Anyway, that was a comedy. I also went to see a movie on Friday. I went to see Dogman. I had no expectations, but I really didn't want to see another drama. And Dogman was an animation by DreamWorks, so I thought it'd be all right. And I was really bored. I was in an auditorium with a load of 8-year-old girls, I would say, and their dads. That seemed to be the audience for some reason, and they were giggling away. But I found it all very fast. It was very hard to take it in. I mean, there was definitely some sort of more adult jokes, should we say. There was some adult content in there for the parents to laugh at. But I found it all very fast moving, and I was really thinking, do I bother watching the rest of this? Should I just go? I've had enough, because I was already starting to feel a little bit ropey at that point. And then Flippy the fish came to life, because Flippy the fish was a character who was dead, and then this weird gas brought him back to life. And he started speaking, and I thought, I recognise that accent. And it was Ricky Gervais. So suddenly I was really interested in Flippy the fish. It was just so good. And there's a bit in there where it's so funny how he talks about when he was in the school. This is basically how he became a bad guy. He was in the school and he was picked on by the other fish, and they called him Fatty Fish Face, I think it was. It was just so stupid. And because I could picture Ricky saying this, it just made it all the funnier. So in the end, I really enjoyed that movie, but probably for a reason that no one else would have enjoyed it. Like I say, the kids thought it was hilarious. There was fart gags and trousers falling down and stuff like that, whereas I'm like, yay, it's my idol Ricky's the voice of Flippy the bad guy. I loved it. Brilliant. Much love and gratitude.